It's okay, it takes time. I know
Welcome back, everybody. Welcome to another amazing episode of #Strong. I'm so excited. We're traveling again today, and we are on our way to London, where we meet Asil. Before we meet Asil officially, anyone watching for the first time, welcome to our channel. And I hope that you are going to walk away from today's episode feeling inspired and feeling connected to a global community. The Strong Journey is about empowering the youth and supporting everyone on this journey. We want to be sharing real lives, real stories, with the aim of making everyday people the inspiration for our youth. It's time that our everyday, regular people that we meet to become the superheroes for our youth, so that they can aspire to look up to people that they feel a connection to. So thank you very much for joining us, and welcome, Asil. Welcome to Strong.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure being here. I'm delighted to be a part of this interview. Thank you for having me.
It really is such an honor to have you here. It's so exciting to be able to travel with the channel and be able to get around the world through COVID-19, especially. But
hmm
before we do that, just tell us a little bit about where you are right now and what brings you to Strong.
Okay, well, basically, I've had about 30 years. I've been in the business of fashion and retail and sort of a serial entrepreneur and working for corporates around the world. And, what draw me to you is your message. I think I spend a lot of time coaching and mentoring throughout my career a lot of different talents and people that I come across, and really trying to enable them to be the best version of themselves and to share as much of my learnings with them. And so for me, your message is very clear. I'm also very focused on sort of the younger generations, because I feel that one, they probably don't maybe necessarily going to have the right experiences that I had, or the same. They're going to have different experiences, but for me, how do you bridge that constant gap that's happening between sort of the younger and the older generation, who have two different paths, but hopefully that they cross and inspire each other? And I think that's exactly what you're trying to do. And therefore, that's very much in line with my values and how my thought process is. So.
Thank you so much. And anybody listening to this right now, I feel it's such a special treat to have you, Asil. Not only are you so experienced in the field of fashion and the industry, but you're also well traveled. You've traveled around the world. You've experienced different diverse cultures and nationalities, and I'm only guessing that the stories you're going to share with us today are going to be full of rich, interesting perspectives on the journey of your life. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. No, it's a pleasure again to be here with you, Maria. And yeah, I mean, I've been fortunate to have traveled a lot. I mean, I'm of a mixed background myself. Originally I'm Iraqi, then I'm also Indian, and I was brought up in the US and mostly in the UK. So as kids, we traveled a lot with my parents. Sort of from place to place. It was tough on my mom, obviously, and a little bit hard on us, because, we'd be in a country for about 18 months and sort of make some friends and then have to upheave again. But it was also very enriching, and it does help you, certainly when you're in a situation where you meet all these diverse cultures and nationalities and people, and you being sort of this combination yourself, you appreciate and gain a tremendous amount of respect for other cultures and other people that you come across, definitely.
So talk to us a little bit about that experience of traveling uh, through your life. What do you believe has it really prepared you for throughout your journey of life, being put on that journey where you had to travel with your family?
Sure. I mean, first of all, we're talking now in the 70s, quite a while ago. And I think it was, in many ways, quite a different world, but also very similar to the world that we're in today. I mean, as a kid, like I said, when we came out to the UK, my sister and I, with my parents, we were the only white kids in our school. It was a local school, and we were very, very different color and very different background. I mean, I was only a year and a half or 2 years, but I didn't speak the language, and so we went through a very difficult time, I'd say, in sort of the early part of our childhood until the early teens. Myself and my sister, a tremendous amount of bullying, a tremendous and not really very difficult for us to try to understand why we were, treated the way we are or spoken to. My sister had a very tough time. So that was sort of the uncomfortable side of it, where I never really wanted to go to school and had every excuse under the sun, mostly every day. So I'd be at home with my mom. So that was sort of the not so pleasant side, is trying to accustomize myself at an early age why I would be any different. But then when we did travel, we were also in places that did embrace us and did embrace, the difference and the I guess the flavor that we brought to the different places that we were. And when we were in international schools, the kids were all from varied backgrounds, so we all shared a very similar experience. But when we were in these very local schools, it was a completely different. And I think definitely having that tough part of it helps you to understand people. I think number one for us, and also, like they say, you sort of try to have to build a resilience. And in most cases, people take a different stance. You either build resilience and learn what not to do with others, or you build a resilience and become, sometimes the bully or have that. Fortunately, with the upbringing and the way that I was raised and the values that surrounded us, and my parents brought us up in an incredible way. Allah yarhamhum, may they rest in peace. So that was what was grounding us to understand that that is not the way that you treat others, and this is how we treat them. And you have to, you put up with it, and you don't defend yourself through physical or abusive, words. You get on and you do the best that you can, and that's what they taught us. And so you build a thick skin based on values, and understanding, like I said, what not to do and how not to treat people. And that's something that stayed with me throughout my life, and my respect for others and my humility in what I do, and especially in the industry that I'm in, which is very superficial and could be very fickle. And so that I'm sort of very distant from the industry in that sense, but very involved from another sense, which is, like I said, that sharing of knowledge, that coaching, that respect, and the roles that I've had, which have been in different countries in the world. And I've managed and led, groups that have more than 80 or 100 nationalities. So you then definitely have that respect and understand the nuance of how to deal with so many cultures. And obviously I was in Dubai for so many years, and over there, it's like a melting pot, like London or anywhere. So when you're dealing and managing and leading diverse teams and cultures, it helps a lot knowing how people feel, especially when they're expats or they're, some of them have left their families, they're on their own. There's so many young people, especially in retail. The average age is very young on the shop floors, and most of them don't have family. Most of them, it's the first time they come out to a country. So developing that empathy and understanding where these people are and having that sort of mindset is very important. And that all comes very much to the fact of how I was raised and the many experiences that I had.
It's so incredible to hear you say this about the learning. And I know that, as adults, it's easy for us to look back and say, I am who I am today because of the experiences that I've come through. And I know as mentors to the youth, we tend to tell them, just trust the journey and try to learn as much as you can. What would you say to someone who might be going through really difficult times with not really fitting in or feeling so different, and not knowing how to get through these challenges, and making sure that sometimes with the youth they feel that it's so impossible to get through it, Asil? And I see this, and I saw this with my own daughter, and and they feel that they're in this and it's never ever going to change. What kinds of suggestions or tips through your life experience would you say, you know what, this and this and this might be what can help you get through these difficult times, even though you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel?
Definitely. I think the first thing, and actually I just posted that yesterday, and one of the things I always say is you have to strive to be the best version of yourself. And I think if you have that at the forefront of your mind, then you've sort of managed your own expectation. Unfortunately, today we live in a world which is so governed, obviously, by social media and unrealistic fantasy, experiences that is over and above what I experienced. Back then, you had to watch television or you had to read a magazine to even know what was happening outside your own zone, really.
Yeah.
Now you can't run away from this perfect life, a perfect world, a perfect face, a perfect everything. And that's a tremendous amount of pressure on youth to have to desperately, try to find money to keep buying the brands that are pushed at them or try to look a certain way. And you never quite feel that you're good enough. And for me, my advice is try to understand that most of what you see is not real, number one. It's not real. And there's an amazing article, and if the youth are listening, I think the editor of Harper's Bazaar several years ago did this little sort of experiment to become an instant sensation within 2 weeks. And she assumed this Instagram and this personality, and she would, she hired a Ferrari for a couple of $100, hired, a seat on a jet to pretend that she was, hired for like $150 to go and pretend to have lunch at this grand mansion, and hired and spent, I think, around $1,000 to portray a $2 million lifestyle, because she was seen coming in and out of these incredible places that she'd paid for. And that the whole point of why this editor did that is to show that you rent this is not real. Not everybody lives on a jet. Not everybody drives a Ferrari. Not everybody lives in a mansion. Nobody's always perfect. I wonder how many people get up in the morning and look at their social media and post how miserable they are or how horrible they feel, or I just got fired from my job. If social media was full of that, believe me, it would shut down. So, the youth have to recognize that what they're seeing is not realistic, meaning they have to strive to be the best that they can be. And in everybody, no matter what, you are blessed, no matter what, with a talent and a positive, you are blessed. You have to find what that is and be in tune to it, Maria, and then really work on it. And also, as you're growing older, or that difficult phase, you have to have a role model, whether it's your lovely auntie or somebody outside of your family sometimes that you can just relate to, that you're able to share. Because without sharing and having this pent up frustration is what is the disaster. You have to have a realistic role model. You don't necessarily have to have Steve Jobs as your role model. That might be an aspiration or a goal. But you have to have realistic role models that are there to support you and that you're able to really look up to, who in their own world have achieved. And the positive side of social media is you do see these amazing, young men and women, young chefs and young, all of these that have young entrepreneurs that have taken their passion, which is another buzzword that you have to have a passion. You will find your passion. You might not know it now, but you will come across it. And you do get inspired, because on the plus side, there is a lot out there that does inspire you. Young kids working really hard, selling or reselling things, like I said, little entrepreneurs. Those are the role models that so you have to manage in your mind what the definition of a role model, or what is something that truly motivates you. But if you set yourself up with this unrealistic expectation, then you by natural default will never feel good enough. And that's where the problem lies.
It's such a difficult challenge for them because they don't have the life experience. And I think you hit it right on the nail in having realistic role models, really realistic role models. So Asil, I was looking and learning more about your amazing accomplishments. And I just have in front of me just some of the awards and the honors that you've been offered in your experience. Arabian Business, 100 Influential People Helping to Shape the Emirates, Kuwait 2018, Forbes 200 Most Powerful Arab Women, 2014, 100 Most Powerful Arab Women, and so on and so on. We look at you and we say, wow, what a wonderful accolade of successful accomplishments. And we know that you're human, you're a woman, just like everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What does Asil do when Wi-Fi switched off, nobody's watching,
Mm-hmm.
and you can put your work clothes away?
Yeah. Well, first of all, alhamdulillah, these awards are, I'm blessed to have had them, and they all come, Maria, from a lot of hard work. I mean, I'm telling you, 30 years, a lot of work. I work, 16, 17 hours a day. I sleep for 2 hours a day. I work very, very hard. And the focus of my work is one driven by passion, one driven by life, because you need to work, and then you make, and you're committed to it. And so I really appreciate these awards because of course they're wonderful, but also at the same time they're very humbling for me. And I don't not take I don't not take them seriously, but I don't take too much notice of them, if you know what I'm saying. So, they're great recognition of my hard work, but I certainly don't, believe them too much, right? I focus a lot more on, like I said, doing my job. That's what I do. For me, it's my job, and I like to, whatever I'm doing, make sure that I do it right with integrity, honesty, and commitment. And and it is a huge responsibility, of course, to have the roles that I have, because you're in a position where you know that you influence and you're guiding and people look up to you, and that's a huge amount of responsibility, whether it's 10 people, 100 people, or 2,000 people. It is and you're making a lot of decisions that affect people's lives, and all of the above. And added to that pressure, of course, when you have, that responsibility, you also, for me, I'm a very introvert extrovert. So actually, people meet me and they think, wow, you're so vibrant and dynamic. But I am, on the other side, incredibly introvert, incredibly private, deeply insecure, and have a lot of, other issues that I have to deal with. One of my greatest strengths is that I can multitask, and people joke. And of course, I have my alter ego is a turban thinker. And, because I have 7 heads and I think at a pace and I can multitask, and my career has been very diverse. And that's phenomenal, but it's also very exhausting. I am the way I am because I'm part creative, part commercial. I constantly use left and right side of my brain, so it exhausts me, which is why. So people see only the one side. They see, wow, you're an achiever. My God, you can multitask, the speed of what you work, you're strategic, you're visionary, all these fantastic things, which are, yes, of course, they're what I do. But at the other side is that they cause a very exhausted mind. Mental health for me is a huge problem that I've dealt with for many, many years. um, I have to manage a lot of things when it comes to that side, so that I'm not burnt out, that I don't veg out. There's a lot of complications that come with having all of that. It's almost like a mad scientist. Sometimes I feel that there's so much in there that I have to now at this age really try hard, through medication and through like a whole bunch of stuff, to really try to control my mind so it's not at this speed. So what I'm saying is, what people see is, of course, that what people, and I don't ever talk about this. As a matter of fact, you're the first person I've ever spoken to about something like this. And that is something that I think now that I'm 50, I'm very aware of, and I'm very much more comfortable to talk about. Before, I mean, I have huge OCD issues and lots of different mental, pressures. And so it's just at this age, I'm now more comfortable to maybe talk about them and to explain to people why I am the way I am. It's not easy to live with a person like me by any means. And how I wind down is, my faith is very important to me. So that's, my time to, and I sit and I read Quran, and I pray. And even that, for a while I was doing excessively and exhaustively, because I'm that kind of person, and I'm trying to find this sort of balance that, but faith is what grounds me. It's how I was raised, and it helps me a lot to sort of lean on. But it's not easy to balance what people assume you are to what actually, you are. It's difficult to wind down. That's one of my biggest problems, is to try to shut off my mind. It's a nightmare, actually, sometimes.
And when you're
Yeah.
able to, how do you shut it down?
I mean, I'm very rarely able to, which is one of my biggest problems. So, I try to, obviously, like I said, I pray. I try to listen to really calming music. I try to sort of do my deep breathing. I drown myself in lavender. I do 1,001 things. I try to walk before I sleep. There's not one thing I haven't tried to do, but I think also what makes it challenging is a mind like mine. When you're focused on trying to do it, it sometimes aggravates it, because then it becomes like, I'm doing this because I need to. So it's very difficult, but I do all the techniques that you'd assume that someone needs to sort of try to do to calm their mind.
I'm so thankful that you're sharing this with us, because you're right. We look up to successful people and we just assume they wake up that way, and we assume that because you make it look so easy, we just assume, it has to be easy because she does it seamlessly.
And that's a big problem. It's a big, it's been a big issue in my career as well, even from my bosses, because, you make something look so easy, then that also sets a complacency on my, on my side, from my managers, because then they're like, well, wow, you can come in and do this and that at that speed. So then their expectation is more. So there's also, a double whammy on that, because I'll come in, and usually what takes somebody, let's say 18, 24 months to do, I might do in 6 months. And that's not something that I'm boasting about, actually. That's a problem in the past, because, a lot of whatever the board or my chairmans are always, your pace is so rapid, you have to be mindful that, and so all of these sort of challenges, you're trying to sort of pace yourself and bring others to the table, and you're all of these, and it's not easy. And when I don't wake up in the morning and think, actually I hardly ever sleep, so I kind of, when I do go into work, typically I'm exhausted, and you just have to keep going. I'll have whatever 12 meetings a day, like I said, 16 hours of work, have to make decisions, I have to think, I have to do that. And how are you ever going to shut down when you're working till like 3 in the morning, and then you're getting up a few hours later? So, that's the side that people don't see. They think when you've achieved a role or a certain position, that it gets easier because now you're the boss. Actually, the responsibility is 10 times, because you're not the boss of you, you're the boss of a lot of people, and you have to make these big responsible decisions. So yeah, it's not easy, and people, I don't think, recognize how much goes into it. And of course, with me, especially being in fashion, people assume it's really glamorous and it's all wonderful. And fashion is one of the most complicated and difficult and stressful industries, as we can all see now. It's falling apart, and it's also one that's very, demanding, and also one that's expecting. And retail is like a 24-hour job, especially, so there's a lot going on, and it's a lot of hard work, is basically what I'm saying.
I can feel it. I can almost feel
Mm,
the pressure and the
mm,
immense responsibility that you carry, Asil. Let's take you back to being a teenager.
hmm
Can you remember those years?
I never stopped thinking about them. Yeah, of course. And I think, when you pass 50, all you do is you start to remember. That you spend your time remembering, and looking at memories. So yeah, definitely my teenage years were very interesting. I was very I'm always saying really lucky to have experienced the 80s. You know, that's when I was a teenager. So that influenced me greatly as well. I think two decades influenced me is the 50s because my mother was from that decade. So the glamour, the sophistication, the femininity of women, you know, the beauty, the natural curves of women, all of that was something that, you know, I loved and I understood that sort of led my passion. And then, of course, the 80s was like the coolest decade ever because it was like total freedom and you had all these different movements and you could be, you know, you could be a punk rocker, you could be a Rolling Stoner, you could be, you know, anything you wanted to be. You could be whatever. It had fantastic shoulder pads, crazy makeup, big hair, and, you know, a lot of attitude. And it was very cool to be a teenager and sort of experiencing all of that. Yeah.
What do you wish teenagers today could have experienced that you did as a teenager?
I think that freedom to, you know, your social time is not spent behind your phone and looking and browsing at this ridiculous number of images that come your way. We never had that. Thank God. Thank God we didn't have that. You know, thank God that what you had is you had to go out and you had to meet your friends and you had to do things together and all of the things that you don't really do now. You know, right now, even when you're together, you're on your phone. You know, I see a whole bunch of young kids together and they're grouped and they're just on their phone. It's like, why are you even together? So that was the time. And like I said, the wonderful thing of, I remember as a teenager, you know, my parents watched the news. It's like that was their thing. I didn't watch the news. You know, I was too busy, obviously, studying, doing my thing, not being affected by big moments. Of course, we were involved in, but generally, I wasn't consumed. You know, you sort of lived in what you got, that comfortable space and that real space, you know, not looking at constant pressure and headlines and news and drama. And this is terrible. I mean, the youth of today is just because there's never really fabulous news out there, you know, so they're inundated with this on two sides, you know, this pressure and then this constant madness that's happening in the world with these crazy leaders that are leading it. So, you know, we didn't have that back then. It
No.
might have been happening, it might have been happening, but we weren't so aware of it, which was a good thing, you know, it was a good thing. It allowed you to be a teenager, really.
It did, and the world seemed a smaller place then, I think, as
So
well.
much. Yeah,
What would you
exactly.
say has been the biggest challenge that you've had to overcome this far in your life?
Well, I mean, you know, like I said, the reason I got into work was, you know, a very personal reason that drove me actually. When 100 years ago, I never thought that I would work for anybody, and I wanted to have my own business. And you know, it's personal circumstances that drove me to actually have um, to go get a job. And that was, you go through life, there's a number of things. I think I was, my parents were a huge part of my life, like I said, and inspire me every single day, and they continue. And when I was growing up, they were both incredibly ill, both of them at a very young age. So I don't remember, ever my older sisters and brother remember my parents as being well. But, as a kid, my father had like his first heart attack at 43, and then another one at 46, another one at 50, and another one at 55. And my mom had Parkinson's disease when she was 38 because of another reason. And so my childhood was pretty much constantly, dad had a stroke, dad had this. So it's a constant barrage of seeing my parents go through a lot, and being with them all that time, which was very difficult because, of course, they're everything to me, So, but as a kid, constantly, um, you know, I'd be traveling, and then dad would have another stroke, and so that was very challenging, as a kid to grow up and always being mindful that, that was a very difficult circumstance for us, as a family. And then just the challenges of the reason that I did go into work, which I don't regret. It was the best thing. Thank God I did it, and I'm blessed that I have it. I would have never done it. You know, when you're a kid, like we were saying, you don't really plan your future out. You don't really think I'm going to be or I want to be. Circumstances push you sometimes to have to do something. Um, and then, you know, for me, of course, it's juggling everything, right? Because when you're a woman, you have much more responsibility. You really do. So for me, the challenge is having to work months away from home, you know, being the other side of the world, for days on end, you know, not seeing my family but knowing that if I sort of you make a decision, if I invest in this because I need to learn it so I can sustain it, but that at the same time, you know, you don't watch, you're just not part of that scene, you know, and you leave everybody back home and you're just doing your thing. And so those are challenging moments, you know, when you're not really around. And so in everything, I think there's some sort of you have to give, right? To get something, you have to give. So it's never, nothing is ever easy, Maria. You always have to put out to get, you know. So, and life is constantly, I mean, you know, we don't even have enough time on this podcast, you know, to go through on the personal level, you know, the challenges, and also on a work level. But what you have to do is you have to learn one thing. And I think if you constantly keep it your mind that every experience you have is one to be sort of learnt from and one to share, to hopefully inspire others, I think that's incredibly important, because that somehow gives you sanity as well, you know, when you're able to sort of because it's one way of downloading. Yeah. And for some people it's easy, for some people it's not. But, you know, life is full of wacky experiences. And I think I really feel sorry for, like I said, the younger generations in a way, because it's very difficult. They have this layer upon layer upon layer of sort of, you know, all this external junk that they're also experiencing. And so that's why I think more than ever, for me, as I was growing up, you have to have, you know, that mentor or that grounding person, or, you know, an ability to speak to very close people and an ability to sort of voice what you have. That's so important. And that's sort of what obviously kept me going as well. Up until now, you know, even up until this position, when you're older and you just, nobody's perfect. We're all human. You know, that's the reality of it, right? So you have to accept you're a human and you can't be everything for everyone. And, you know,
You
yeah,
really can't. You really can't.
yeah.
What have you said no to in life to be who you
Oh,
are today?
oh my God, so many things. I mean, my values are the single most thing in my ethic that drive my every decision, personally and in business. So for me, it's very, very simple. My father was my greatest example, and my mother. And he said no to a lot of things in life. And it's simply, what is bad, and what is good is good. I don't have a middle. So when I see something that is not right, it's not ethical, it compromises, it's against values, it's very simple. I don't care who it is and who's employing me, how much I'm making, who I'm working for. For me, that's how I live my life. And so saying no has been a huge part of it, because if I believe that, you know, everything from, you know, major decisions to small ones. If I believe that something will affect someone in a negative way, no matter who, in what position, or it might impact in a very selfish manner, it's just not possible for me. I just don't do it. So I've walked away from many a role and many jobs and many moments because I will not compromise. You don't hire someone like me without understanding that I don't compromise ever. And I literally mean ever. I'm very open, very honest, very direct. And you see it like it is. And it's very difficult for people to accept that, you know. And I remember in one of my jobs, you know, they did this sort of whatever they do, and they tell you about your personality traits or something. And they told me that I didn't do politics and I didn't play the game. You know, it's corporate world, of course. And politics doesn't necessarily mean a bad thing. It means, you know, you have to sort of compromise to get your way sometimes. And my response literally was, no, I don't. I don't do it. I never will. I'm not going to compromise. I'm not going to sweet talk my way into a decision or get to know you, because I just don't do that. And that works for me maybe doesn't work for others. But yeah.
That takes a great amount of confidence to be able to hold to your values, especially a woman in an industry that you were working in. What would you say, or who would you say was your ally through that part of your life?
I mean, for me, definitely, my husband is a very important, he's a life coach, which helps a lot. And, he's the one that I bounce a lot off and, go to, and I vent. So he takes a lot, you can imagine, he takes a lot from me in the morning and uh, doses of it at night. But, and that's a huge part for me to be able to sort of bounce off my thoughts. And of course, when my parents were still around, huge part, I would share everything with them and get there because they were just like that. They just, there's just no compromise on anything that affects values. And so it's not, it's confidence, it's also a huge amount of faith because, I'm very much about, doing the right thing. It's always about not hurting and doing the right thing with people. So it's the confidence and it's also faith that I know that you treat it's you treat people and you take a good decision, which is a unanimous good decision, not a good decision that favors a minority. For me, a good decision means that it's a majority, and that's how I lead. So yeah, of course it's confidence, but also that's the way you're raised. When you're raised and you have those ethics that are embedded into you, and you have the faith that drives you and explains to you that right is right and wrong is wrong. Then for me, it's very, maybe it's because I'm a Gemini as well, you know. But it's not just confidence. It's I just won't do it because I truly believe. It's conviction of knowing what I want to do is purely has to be pure and right. That's it.
So amazing. You're right. There's just not enough time to go
No.
through everything. I'd love to. I see in front of me a really strong, confident, successful, genuine woman. What's missing?
I think you definitely see a strong, successful, hugely genuine woman, but you also, there's another side that is a very, vulnerable, very human, a very emotional, as in engage, emotionally connected woman, someone with a lot of empathy as well for others, and someone who, like I also always say, who sort of thinks with her heart, and that's the kind of woman that you see.
Amazing.
Yeah, but quite a
Amazing.
complicated person.
Yeah. I call it the beauty of being human. And it
Mhm.
took me a really long time to accept that we are who we are. And unfortunately, like you said, sometimes it's by choice and sometimes it makes, life makes us learn things the hard
Mm.
way. And
Yeah.
and what I now know for sure, Asil, is there's no one way to live our life. It really is
No.
about that, what you said. It's about being true to our values and
Yes.
about feeling that we can be true to our values. And I think that's why strong is so important, because by connecting with each other and by allowing us to take the mask off and be vulnerable and have these
Mhm.
conversations, we're giving permission to the younger generation to say, you know what, you're not going to wake up this way. And, the fairy tale that you see in social media, it really is.
Mhm.
It's just a facade. And we
Yeah.
can, we can get through it. So amazing.
100%. You're amazing. It's incredible what you're doing. I love it. I love your personality and the way that you are. And, what you're doing is fantastic, and championing this community and sharing these stories, especially focused at the younger generation, is something that's, a remarkable thing, Maria. And I hope to see it really grow stronger and stronger and really empower all of these young generation to think differently and hopefully be inspired, by real people, with real stories. That's the most important thing.
Thank you so
So
much.
thank you so much for
Thank you.
having me.
Really, thank you.
Really. No, my pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
Oh no, it's me who thanks you, Asil. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you to everyone for watching. This brings us to the end of another really, truly amazing episode with another fabulous woman.
Thank you so much.
I look forward to seeing you all again next week when we travel around the world and meet another amazing guest. Thank you for watching, everybody.
Take care. All the best. Stay safe.
It's so